You're watching Open Agenda. Here's our host, Joe Venosa.
Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Open Agenda. Drama in the city once again. I think we'd all agree on that. A big issue has emerged. This was coming. This had been coming for several weeks, and it really kind of blew up at the city council meeting last Monday, which the city has proposed moving forward with legislation to effectively gut or take away the 2023 City Labor Code, which basically means that the collective bargaining rights or apparatus for the police, firefighters and EMS, and city workers would be taken away. City authorities, or at least some city authorities, argue that this has to be done because the city is in such a precarious financial situation, although it is complicated. And others would say that city workers are basically being punished for broader problems, and that this is a deeply destructive and morale-killing approach that will actually affect public safety. With us today we have from Fruitland, Ms. Trish Melvin.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. From Salisbury, Mr. Joscafino.
How you doing?
So this week, and really for the last several weeks, there's been a lot of talk and a lot of concern in the community because there's a real major issue happening right now at the center of city government that has been incredibly divisive. It's elicited a lot of passions, I think justifiably so, and that is, of course, the city's possible decision to get rid of collective bargaining, specifically the bargaining ability for police, fire, EMS, and city municipal workers.
Today we are coming before you to remove the collective bargaining rights. What we will hear today is that the administration does not want to pay our law enforcement or our public safety officers. This is bigger than that. This is just the financial outlook as a whole. Just as context, the city does have 3 separate collective bargaining units. We have our fire unit, we have our police unit, and we have our general employees unit. So generally, the city has been holding around 7 to 9 million in surplus year over year. Well, when COVID hit, we'd seen our COVID relief money and a lot of one-time money come in. So basically what you see on the right there, the blue is our increase in personnel salaries and benefits. And then the orange is what the percentage of revenue increase we recognized over the last 2 years. So from 2020 to 2025, we've received over $11 million in one-time funding, which is awesome. But some of that was also used to cover the wage increases that we've seen in the last couple of years. Our finance team will tell you that's not sustainable to cover reoccurring operating costs with one-time surplus. That gap that you see there, that is where we're pulling from surplus year over year to balance the budget. We have a 18% or $1 million increase in our employee health insurance, which the mayor's budget will show that we are absorbing that $1 million. We have a liability and property insurance increases of approximately $130,000, and utilities we're predicting around an additional $100,000 to $200,000. So right there you have $1 million, call it $1.3 million, coming off what is $1.7 million that we're projecting to have in additional revenues this coming year. If we continue down this road of funding reoccurring operating with surplus and one-time funding, our credit rating is good right now, but that will, if we continue to do this, that will decrease. And decreasing our credit rating obviously increases our interest rates and decreases our ability to borrow. OPEB, or other post-employment benefits, those benefits are the retirees' health insurance and any employees we currently have that we've told them we will cover their health insurance if they retire from the city. That fund has not been funded since 2009. It's approximately 35% funded. And what that means is that's a true liability. If we don't fund it, the general fund will have to cover it because obviously we've made that commitment to our employees and our retirees.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple of things. I came from the private sector, so my familiarity with government budgeting was limited. Although I could see from the financials that we had a trajectory of costs that were going to exceed our revenues for sure, just based on what I'd seen in the reporting from the financials. That said, what I realized when I got in here was we were budgeting $1.5 million more in expenses than we had in revenue. And and what we were hoping on was we'd have vacancies and savings during the year that would bring us even. So there was never ever this started about 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. So there was never going to be a chance for us to earn a surplus unless we were $1.5 million to the black. So that was a structural mistake. So let me just give you a couple quick facts I think are important. Right now, 4 or 5 years before I took office, we raised taxes 3 times. Our municipal tax rate is the highest in the county, 3rd in the state. If it wasn't for the tax cap on the county side, and you can't count the county, we would be probably one of the most taxed counties in the state for sure. Even if we raised our rates 10%, which would be a Herculean amount in 1 year, that would be enough. That would not be enough to break us even on an operating basis with our current demands based on the demands of the current union cost. So then that would be just for the first year. Then we have to go to a second year and a third year. So it's 10% per year until who knows when. Unfortunately, under the constraints of the union, we can't fix that problem. So that's why we have come to try and put this forward. And I think it's we don't have many options in that regard.
Now, this has been in the works for some time. The mayor had previously made an attempt to get rid of that. The council at the time voted it down. But now, at a recent meeting, the council, by a 3-2 vote, essentially voted to advance the motion that would get to a reading that would effectively undo the 2023 labor code. And that labor code, if it is undone, would effectively take away collective bargaining representation and ability from police, fire, and city workers. So I was at the council meeting for a good chunk of it. I believe you were as well.
I was there for a while. I stayed about a half hour. It was packed out the door, down the hall, past the elevator, around the corner to the executive's office. It was packed. And at that point, I couldn't hear anything. I said, you know what? I'm going to go home and watch it. And it worked out much better.
And Trish, you watched it as well at home, correct?
I did. I watch on TV.
Initial takeaways.
You know, first of all, I have to give the mayor some accolades because he did something that I haven't seen lately, and that is unify the entire city. Unfortunately, it's against him, but all disparate parts and interests of the city agreed that this isn't such a good idea.
But these first responders deserve everything that we can possibly do for them and their families. They put their lives on the line every single day. Our police officers, our firefighters, our paramedics, our EMTs. I'm so proud to serve with each and every one of them here in Wicomico County. And I know you're going to make some very challenging decisions in the hours ahead, perhaps weeks ahead, on their futures. But you are making that decision on their futures. It's in your hands. And I just hope you weigh all the sacrifices they make every single day for all of us, for my family, for my agency here in this county, when you weigh your decision, because their futures are in the balance here. And as we consider the needs of everybody in this room, please consider, more importantly, the needs of the citizens of Salisbury. They need every first responder and the family members in this room.
You know, local government, in my opinion, one of the primary responsibilities of the reason local government exists is public safety. You know, street lights, all that's secondary. Garbage collection, public safety is of primary importance. And I was so impressed by our public safety workers in Salisbury that spoke last night. And I think it's important for the mayor to read the room.
And council.
And council. I was just going to say, and council too,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it did pass.
I mean, I think the community's united. I understand the mayor's position. Look, we have some budget issues, but we can't solve them on the backs of the people that are working.
If we are talking about eliminating the unions, does that allow the administration, from what you're saying, the opportunity to make the police department competitive with other municipalities? Because that is a huge issue right now. Are you able to divert other funds and have some financial flexibility? Because as you mentioned, the police department right now, and thank you, Jamie Dykes for your letter, is really in a pinch. So would you, as the administrative portion, have that financial flexibility to address these issues if the unions were not in place?
Yes, and that's what we were talking. And as early as last Friday, we met with representatives from the FOP to discuss, obviously, the situation that's happening in law enforcement. And I can believe the state's attorney can talk to that more and what we've seen since 2021 and what's happening and hiring on the Eastern Shore, and everyone's losing to other jurisdictions, and we're kind of in this, we're pulling from the same pool type of situation. But to answer your question, yes, with having 3 bargaining units, there is some constraints where you are bargaining, the city's bargaining individually with each unit, but the city as a whole has the responsibility to its residency. And the financial flexibility you speak of, without those 3 units, you would have the ability to say, where are your problems and where are you seeing retention and recruitment issues, and you could address those on a one-off basis versus the 3 separate units. These are tough decisions to make, and not ones that we're making lightly, I can say that.
There are some aspects of the labor agreement or the protections of the union that they would like to keep, which is fine. We could probably make them part of the regular employment manual, employment discussion at the department level. And so I don't necessarily think it needs to be a union to do that. Obviously, I think we can do that independently of a union, and then have all the complexities that come along with it. So.
And I spoke, full disclosure,
Right.
and I was up there, and Salisbury had achieved some measure of that in the 2023 labor code, although I think we also would argue that there were perhaps flaws in how that happened specifically. But the idea of giving union protection, I certainly support it. Right. And I think the city's financial situation is terrible, but I think unfortunately a lot of the workers are being sacrificed.
Yes, I think there's got to be other options to look at before taking this step.
The mayor and the council and Nick Rice, the city administrator, they all talked about, right, how precarious our funding situation is in.
My name is Michael Langford. I notice this a lot of times in discourse where people want an outcome, but they can't propose any solutions. So right now, my summary of the thing is, how will we increase city revenue to maintain city services in order to cover our routine operational costs? And is it possible without increasing taxes on our existing citizenry? I believe there is a simple answer to that, and it is annexing in properties that are already receiving city services, including emergency services. We've heard this from the mayor before, that there are over 1,800 parcels. So if you want to talk about millions of dollars that we don't need to borrow from other people, we have a bunch of neighbors here that are not paying their fair share. I also want to point out most of the comments tonight could have been summed up as there's 2 arguments. Basically, that I want this outcome, so we should do this, or there are these consequences, which is a veiled threat of if you don't do what I want. Those are the 2 main arguments. The only time we saw deviation from that standard form of argument was from people shilling for companies, which was very disappointing to see people come in here and grandstand for private interests in the guise of for the public interest. But it happens all the time if you come to city council. Gentleman who owns the Ross downtown, who we don't have fire trucks that can reach high enough for those people if that building catches fire. 2, he's got 20 years tax abatement. So you want to talk about the missing money for you guys to get paid, like that gentleman there, that's who you need to be shaken down, not this gentleman here. The other aspect of this is, and also we've got council members, Gregory and Blake, who voted for that 20-year tax abatement for multiple businesses in this city. The entire reason we're here and why we're running a structural deficit is because there are a ton of businesses not paying their fair share, not paying their fair taxes, and that's the missing revenue.
Council members, tonight we're debating the mayor's proposal to dissolve the unions because of the budget. I'm here to remind you that this financial crisis was entirely avoidable. It's one thing to have a one-off dispute with somebody, but when every single new development in downtown and many throughout the city are paused, what we are now seeing is a pattern of destruction. Instead, the city is stuck paying for multiple lawsuits The mayor ran on transparency, and so I think it's important for the public to know about the legal bills. If this claim, in this claim, the mayor is shocked that the $4 million grant that was earmarked to our project creates a funding gap that would upend our deal. To suggest a 12% shift in a capital stack is insignificant and does not stop our project, demonstrates a profound lack of understanding of the development background needed to be our mayor. So why does this matter tonight? The mayor says we must cut the unions because of lack of funds, but he forgot to mention he is choking off the very growth that would pay for them. There is well over $100 million in development in downtown alone, and that would generate over $1 million a year in new annual property tax revenue, hundreds of thousands of dollars in building permit fees, and hundreds of thousands of dollars in new water and sewer income.
Good evening. Joe Venosa. I live in District 3 of the city, District 7 of the county. I believe that the approach of getting rid of collective bargaining is a grave mistake. Unfortunately, it's happening in a true crisis because many things can be true at the same time. This has been stated before, President Jackson, and I fully concur with this. The city gave away assets over the years to the tune of millions of dollars. The man who spoke before me just now was the recipient of millions of dollars that could have gone to our police and our fire, but they got corporate subsidies. Don't forget that. That's why he didn't talk about the workers in that little comment. He didn't mention you. He mentioned his lawsuits. So many things can be true at the same time. The administration, in my opinion, is wrong to take away collective bargaining because you're going back on the promises you made to these people. But we're in a point right now where it has developed over several years, and now we find ourselves where the working class, the workers, are being sacrificed on the altar of bad decisions, incompetence, and corporate welfare, as Mr. Simpson just embodied a few minutes ago. So let's be clear. Collective bargaining is not the issue at play. The city is, in my opinion, basically walking away from its promises. It's like a corporation that declares Chapter 11 so they don't have to pay the pensions. I don't believe that's a good look for the city. It certainly doesn't help our morale. Now, this is what I propose because it's been brought up. I've read the collective bargaining agreements for the FOP, for the fire department, and for the municipal workers. This is a first reading. There's still time to get counter offers and to get in a room and negotiate in good faith. There are weeks for that. So please, between now and the second reading, let's come to the table as adults. Let's get a compromise. Let's work it out. Collective bargaining is not the enemy of progress, and it certainly has proven throughout our history to be a gateway to the middle class. I'm proud to stand with everybody here, and I hope we can come to our senses in the near future. Thank you.
They're talking about that it would sort of have to result in possible 3 to 4 years of 10% tax increases just to achieve the numbers that the bargaining units and the city have discussed. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, right? And again, I've heard varying accounts. I want to say this publicly that I have some friends who are very close to some of those bargaining units, and what they told me is that the city, after the union made their initial offer, the city never made a counteroffer.
First of all, where are we in the negotiation process? Like, how much back and forth has there been so far? Have you answered them, they answered you, or where are we in that?
We've gone back and forth with all three unions.
Now, we're talking about we just don't have the revenue, we just don't have the revenue, we just don't have the revenue. There are a couple of things that we can do, okay? We can raise taxes or fees or whatever. That's not the answer I want to look for, though. We can expand the tax base, though. And we do that by encouraging development. Right now, there have been multiple developments that this administration has firmly been against, worked against, stopped cold, and those are places where we could have expanded our tax base and brought in extra revenue that may have covered over these patches. We are facing multiple lawsuits as a city because these projects have been halted. Our mayor has decided unilaterally that he is not going to move these things forward. So I want to be really clear with the people in this room right now that this has nothing to do with us not being able to raise taxes or anything like that. We have other avenues to bring in revenue, and they are not being utilized. They were being utilized, and then they were stopped cold.
We have had numerous developments that the developer had not to pay anything, just move in and just do construction and not pay anything. So that was a loss as well.
The downtown development that you're talking about, 111 and 15, we're not the plaintiff. We're the defendant. Okay? Okay.
Where? That's
okay.
That's the whole point.
No, it's not. We're not. We can't stop a lawsuit by a third party. So, secondly,
We can by following through with our contracts with that individual. Therefore, they will not sue us.
again, you're showing your unawareness of what's really going on. That's the
Please
problem.
educate us.
Point of order. Point of order.
So
I'm not gonna say it
here,
again.
let's stop. Secondly, even in the dream state of which these projects, guess what? You gave them the Horizon program. They won't generate taxes for years. Listen, I know you want to push a narrative, but I'm here to solve problems. I came to be mayor to solve problems. I saw them coming. You were part of that challenge. You were part of that problem, and you're continuing to be. That's it.
And we sold properties for pennies. Jackson. That's another thing. We sold properties. The marina on Fitzwater Street for $1. A marina, waterfront property. You want to talk about giving something away? Fire headquarters. Sold that for $85,000, and now we're paying $100 and something thousand a month. A year. We gave away stuff. So let's make this clear. There's not a blame game on anybody. Let's get this city back in financial straight so we can do what we need to do. I don't really want to get rid of the union, but if that's what it takes for us to get back where we are, then that's what we must do.
Take it from the person who's only been in the seat since December. I can tell you since this topic came up, I have done nothing but research, have meetings, look at the budget. I have looked at some of the projects that I won't point fingers and blame that were done, that were at the city taxpayers' expense. At this time, I have serious concerns that the path we are on is not sustainable.
Salisbury is legitimately in a bad financial way.
No doubt.
And there's a lot of reasons for that, right? Some of them I had mentioned in my public comments. Other people brought this up. But we do have a situation where, again, like I've said and others, a lot of things can be true at the same time. But is it really going to help things by getting rid of collective bargaining for police, firefighters, EMS, and city workers at a time when all three of those workers or those classes of workers have severe shortages, especially police and fire?
Yeah.
Whether or not it is the intent to close the doors of the Salisbury Police Department, that will be the effect. Whether this proposal stems from failings of prior mismanagement or perceived failings of prior mismanagement, or from an uninformed and erroneous belief that the Salisbury Police Department is overstaffed and overpaid, ultimately it does not matter. The outcome will be the same. My comments tonight are directed to the effect of the Salisbury Police Department because of their strong interface with the work that I do in being able to keep the public safe. But I want to make clear the Salisbury Fire Department, what I say applies to them also. This notion that the Salisbury Police Department is overpaid is not grounded in reality. Neighboring agencies handling fewer calls, less violent crime, are paying their officers more. The idea that the Salisbury Police Department is overstaffed ignores what is actually happening on the ground. They are already under strain. Their authorized staffing sits at 93, with a 20% shortage, when informed estimates call for a significant increase in sworn staffing, above even the frozen 10 positions at 103. To analyze policing as you would any other job will not provide the information that you as policymakers need to make responsible decisions. Their background qualifications are discriminating, as they should be. The academy requirements, both physical and academic, are strenuous, as they should be. This is not a 7-hour work day profession. It's not a 5-day-a-week work profession. This is not telework. This is not optional overtime or flexible demand. This is a job that requires people to run towards danger, to manage violence, to absorb trauma, and to make split-second decisions that carry life-altering consequences. Mayor Taylor proposes law enforcement not having a seat at the table when they can go to any other law enforcement agency on the lower shore and make more money and be less concerned about their and their families' future.
If the public safety loses its unions, they're going to get jobs elsewhere. And we're not fully staffed now. That condition, it'll get worse.
Yeah, I mean, as far as morale, I mean, that's a kick in the butt to every city worker. And, you know, we need to be competitive. We can't compete with the Annapolis, the Anne Arundel, the Oceans. We can't compete, but we got to be close. And right now, my understanding, talking to a few police officers I know, we're close. But we need to maintain that.
But getting rid of the collective bargaining rights would not. It would take it.
Number one, you're killing morale, and you're putting up a huge sign. Don't apply for work in Salisbury, and that's not what we want.
And I think a lot of the speakers either directly said that or certainly referred to it. I mean, and we had a whole slew of people from different. Again, I've said this before. Recently, you know, this is not a partisan or political issue in the sense of left, right, Democrat, Republican.
Right.
You had people from, you know, you had labor groups that we would consider on the left, labor groups you'd consider on the right. You had Jamie Dykes there. You had other law enforcement and police and firefighter union reps there. And that consensus really came through, though, is that this is not the way to go about it.
Exactly.
And I do feel, this is my read, that I think the council is genuinely tortured over it. April Jackson, city council president, you know, spoken at length about her own family's history in organized labor. They all talked about the importance of getting the people who work for the city to feel appreciated. I mean, I don't doubt that they're sincere in their concerns, but I think this is not going to help that cause at all. I think this is going to lead to some real bigger crises.
And Michael Langford brought up some really great points. One of the biggest drivers to help the revenue situation is for the city to annex areas that have had water and sewer service for years.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read history. I've read almost every history book in the library on Wycomico County, Salisbury, and several of the authors, including Phil Cooper, who was the city engineer for like 25 years. He said the city screwed up by not annexing when they laid out the water and sewer.
Yeah.
There's approximately 1,800 properties that would come in. And, you know, you do simple math, that's multi-million dollars back in with no additional burden on the services.
Well, and there's other things, too, that were brought up, tax deferential or rebate. Giveaways, things like that. And there were people there who did speak, I think, particularly as the council deliberations got more heated and, frankly, toxic. I think there were moments there where you began to see that the genuine policy concerns and issues that are at stake for regular people really did devolve into some of the more unprofessional actions of some city council members. I mean, personally, I was shocked toward the end of the meeting at the exchange between President Jackson and Councilwoman Angela Blake.
And no objection.
We've got to figure it out. So
Love it.
Thank you.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you for observing that. Oh, now there's an objection.
No, because you're being rude.
Now there's an objection.
You know what, Angela? Now I'm gonna do you like you did the other person. You're gonna mess around, you're gonna get put out of here. First of all, you're being disruptive. I appreciate everybody coming out. I appreciate everything everybody says, and nobody supports you all more than I do. Nobody, for real. I mean, I'm so... And that's a leader.
And so I fear that what began at that meeting on Monday, I fear that in the coming weeks we're going to see a continuation that might not be productive. I hope I'm wrong, but that's where I see it going. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Open Agenda.